welcome to my channel, or welcome back, loyal viewers. Pull up a chair, your favorite beverage, because I did watch part 2 of the compelling Keemstar Onision interview. We're going to unpack that cluster fun, so you better just start appreciating me. Okay, so I took a few notes. It was about another 13-minute video or so. No intro, no outro. It's just boom, here's some questions. And as you can imagine, you could fill 13 minutes pretty quickly if you let Onision talk and just ask him questions and give him all of the latitude that Keemstar does. Now, Keemstar does this very interesting thing. I want to dissect this for a second. In order to keep Onision on the line and keep him from hanging up, right, to get the interview at all, you have to give him this idea that he's in a safe place and he'll be able to just talk and have his own little echo chamber, just like his own videos, which is essentially what Keemstar does. But at the same time, he's trying to ask the tough questions so that viewers get their pound of flesh. Once again, we see a huge journalistic error in how he interviews Onision. A good journalist, and again, I have to bring up Chris Hansen, how I miss him, right? As an experienced journalist, he knows that you don't just ask the person questions. You ask questions about their answers. You ask the questions that you anticipate the audience is going to have. So a good journalist hears the W's. In other words, when Onision says something like he did regarding, for example, Patreon and getting kicked off of that platform, when he says, it was an accident, that Keemstar did say, but, accident or not, you put a number out there. And Onision says, but it was an accident, and you don't get to just fire somebody because of an accident. Now, anybody else talking to Onision would point out the very obvious. They'd hear those W's. They would hear the audience questioning that. They would hear the audience say, but you did do it. There are consequences for your actions regardless of intentions, and why should Patreon have a platform that has any tolerance for doxing? Can't you see what would go wrong with that? He can't wrap his brain around how he should have consequences. The guy who calls everyone else a moron who criticizes him can't figure out that Patreon cannot make an exception for you because you're just this nice guy who didn't mean to break the rules, who didn't mean to break the law. They have to cover their own butts at the very least. It's not about punishing him. And this is just one of the many instances that Keemstar lets it go. It actually starts out with a huge mistake, in my opinion. Keemstar says to Onision at the get-go, may I ask you some questions that Sarah has for you? Some questions from Sarah. And excuse me if I look down, I did take some notes because I don't want to leave out any of these nuggets. So he says, can I ask you these questions? And immediately Onision goes, wait a minute, that's weird. 4 times, literally. He says, that's weird. He's all nervous. He's all taken aback. He wasn't prepared for this. And he takes a moment to adjust. And in my opinion, he's thinking, whoa, what's coming at me? That's a little bit, 1 degree away from one of his accusers. He might have something here he can't squirm out of. He adjusts very quickly and says, it's creepy, but okay. Why is that creepy? Now, to me, it's a mistake to say, may I ask you some questions from this person? And Keemstar says, I haven't asked you, but I want to ask you these questions. Why not just phrase it and say, now one of your detractors has said this, what do you say to that? That would make a lot more sense. It's interesting, though, that Onision felt blindsided. And again, Keemstar's walking that slippery slope of trying to look like he's asking the tough questions while lobbing Onision softballs. And he absolutely does. And a couple of times, in my opinion, crosses the line into supporting him completely. We don't know where Keemstar got these questions, but also that person isn't there. It's kind of weird to have this third-party questioning. It's a disadvantage for Sarah, too, because she can't respond or refute what he's saying. So I would just probably phrase it differently. He actually says her question is, why did Onision say, let's wait when I was 15? He only had 2 questions from Sarah, by the way. And of course, the questions are brief, the responses are long and gaslighty and everything else that they are. So I feel like he should have said, Sarah has questioned why she believes you said this. She believes that you made the claim to wait till she was 15. Was that a joke? Was that said? And Onision's like, where was that said? Does she have evidence? Blah, blah, blah. He starts going off and gaslighting. And then the next question comes up, well, why did he tell me that if I ever told people what happened, it would ruin his career? Let's just say I'm paraphrasing, okay? Why did he, say that? And Onision really got mad at that. She's an idiot. She has BPD. She remembers things that differently than they happened. She remembers a different reality. He just went on. I was glad that Keemstar did ask a question saying, you don't see how this is creepy to people that you had this person in your house, and that, you have to know that people are going to find that creepy, that she was a minor, and then something happened when she was 18 and a half or whatever. And Onision is like, what I think is that I saw someone whose mother was beating her, and I took her in because I'm such a white knight, and took her into his house, etc. And it's interesting because it turns out that not only did something go on when the girl was 18 and a half, but I noticed in Onision's little after show video, he mentions that she was kicked out of his house for a comment. She made a comment he didn't like, which was actually in response to him talking about her derriere in the air on a chair or something. It was highly inappropriate. It was just a joke. Just a joke. All these things are just jokes. The fact that they manifested into a real relationship means you weren't joking. When did it change from a joke to a viable option? That's what I'd like to know. And let me tell you something else. This is why everybody finds it creepy. And it's not a bunch of morons. It's not a bunch of mindless tweens. There are adults who find this creepy. And they are rational, highly functioning adults who are criticizing you. Not a bunch of morons. You wish. I watched a group of kids when I was 11 years old, and the youngest was 3 months old. They went up to age almost 4. The 2 little girls were older, and the 2 little boys, one was 2, one was 3 months old. And I loved them. They were like my baby dolls. I was 11. I was quite young to be taking care of a family. Funny that I was more afraid when I was 27 and they put my baby in my arms. But I thought nothing of taking care of a 3-month-old, even when he wasn't very well or healthy, and I had to rock him and whatever. I was a very good babysitter. I took care of the kids, read to them, put them to sleep, and then ate all their food and watched HBO because I care. That boy, was 3 months old when I was 11, so he's in his 40s now. And do you know how I see him even now? Like my baby. He was my baby. And if I, in my 20s or 30s or any other age, took in a minor who was being abused, you can bet that relationship would be chaste. There would be no inappropriate jokes, and there would never be any contact beyond that, regardless of what age they became, because that would be the relationship that we would have. It is not okay. If you take away everything that you can call speculation with no proof, what we know is true and what he has admitted to is not okay in most people's eyes. I don't think he's going to get arrested for it, but morally speaking, he's a creep. And people have a right to call him such. I noticed in Onision's video where he was talking about Sarah and he said she got kicked out for making a comment he didn't like. He said he sent her back to live with her mother. So you weren't really concerned about the abuse. What a white knight. She says a comment you don't like, and she's out on her arse. She's out on dat arse. So, in other words, you held this power over her. You will find a theme with Onion, and I noticed this well into this second video. I've thought about this before, but it really stuck out today when he went off on a tangent about some girl. Onision is obsessed, even in his 30s, with talking about his romantic relationships. And they are bonkers. And as strange and bizarre as they are, he loves talking about them. You can tell. He likes to create chaos around himself and then call people crazy. He makes sure that he finds the wounded wildebeest, a person who has problems. It could be a family problem, it could be something else, and then the jokes begin. And then something happens. And it's always that he is at the epicenter of these women acting crazy. And he's just enduring it, according to himself. He started telling this whacked out story to Keemstar when he was discussing how people would take his videos seriously when he was clearly joking. First of all, that's ridiculous, because I don't know anybody who thought he was really homeless and having a meltdown. You'll probably find 2 people who believed it and then act like everybody did. Every video I saw, everybody knew that he was just playing this role. It wasn't entertaining, it wasn't funny, and at no point was it believable. So he can stop with this narrative that everybody's a moron who believed him. There's just nothing entertaining about it. He's like, I don't understand. I was just talking about putting duty on myself. Yeah, because you're like a 13-year-old idiot yourself. So he starts talking about how people take him seriously, but then he put up a video where he really was crying, and people didn't know he was serious, but he was all upset because this girl was going to kill herself over him because clearly she was in love with him, and he expressed an attraction to someone else. It's bonkers. He doesn't even realize how bonkers these stories sound. It's always somebody who's around, and he becomes really very like monotone, emotionless, like he's just describing it like she was going to kill herself over me. She was really in love with me. And he does that when he talks about his house too. Yeah, my spouse was going to leave me, and then this was going to happen. I'm like, oh, baby Jesus, help me. He's raising children. He has reproduced. This man who is 3 sandwiches short of a picnic is raising and developing human minds. I mean, please tell me that the acorn fell far from the tree, because I worry. He's actually somebody who creates chaos in his life and tries to pass it off as normal. And he really does remind me a lot of Ted Bundy. And I know that is a leap. He is not a serial killer in my mind. Check under the house anyway. But he's not Ted Bundy in that sense. But he's similar to him in that sociopathic denial of any wrongdoing. Remember how arrogant Ted Bundy was about everything that he did wrong? He just acted like it was preposterous that people could accuse him of anything. And I see Onision doing that same thing, representing himself in court, making bizarre assertions about other people's sanity, and practically laughing at the idea that he did something inappropriate. One thing is clear. Nobody's life ever seems to have been enriched by knowing him. He seems to make everyone's life worse that he's around, and he's never the cause. Since Count de Monet is going to visit anyway, I might as well tell you that Onision claims that the aggressor was Sarah, that all these things that happened made Kai a victim, as if, his husband, who he can't speak for, was the victim. We do know he's been accused largely of defeminizing women and turning them into boys, according to other reports. That is probably, excuse the expression, an onion with a lot of layers. It's been brought up that this is his weird way of being comfortable with maybe his own closeted homosexuality. So he can say, my husband. He can kind of be with a guy in this safe way because it's technically biologically female. And that's very armchair, but it's interesting food for thought. Clearly, the two of them are both responsible for some inappropriate behavior in most people's eyes. Onion claims that Sarah herself has said if anyone was broomed, it was them, and that she was sorry for R-ing them, and that she said, sorry for R-ing you, and then it left. And then he shows footage of her walking off the property like that somehow is evidence that she said what he said she said. And even if she did, I'm sorry, it's because people aren't stupid, that they know that a person who is being coerced and coached and surviving, who is a survivor, is going to tell you what you want to hear. That's part of the whole process. Not just telling you what you want to hear, but giving you the sound bites that cover your arse. Not the longest day I live will I be convinced that there was something appropriate about this relationship, and you're not going to get me or anyone else with 3 brain cells to blame the victim. That is a really convenient way for him to shirk any responsibility. But, I have to believe that if James Jingleheimer Schmidt was as innocent as he says, this all wouldn't be happening to him. There's no way that people would be questioning acts that were not questionable in some way. There's far too much smoke for you to keep saying there's no fire. There are multiple accounts. So while this interview with Keemstar didn't really pin Onision down, I think the reason I wasn't ultimately frustrated is because I know nobody will ever be able to. He will always squirm out of it. He will always be slippery. If he gets really too far on the hot seat, he'll hang up. He doesn't want to answer questions about how he took videotape at inappropriate times. He obviously films everything that happens around him. But I don't think he'd be able to just blurb out things that were very bizarre and made no sense without somebody else questioning it. At one point, I think the worst thing that Keemstar said in the interview was when he goes, I don't think the internet gave you a fair shake. Really? You know, Keemstar has been accused in the past of sticking up for some horrible people and not believing anything any victim says. He really gave Onision a pass on that one. He really, you know, allowed him to be off the hook for some horrible things. And I think Keemstar is old enough to know that that relationship that they had with a minor in their home was not appropriate. I don't care if she was 18 and a half or 19 and a half. Not appropriate. She trusted them. She was a damaged kid who needed a real safe place. Not a place where there would be jokes that objectified her. She's not stupid. She knows what was going on. She knows that that home where she wasn't beaten was at that time her best hope. That's probably all she thought she had. She probably thought she had people looking out for her best interests, but she was surviving. If you've watched this far, I so appreciate you. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to watch part 3. I will do that for you. I'll probably watch it anyway, but let me know if you want to hear my commentary on it. I'm happy to do that. As long as puppies and children or old people aren't getting hurt, I can tune in and tell you my thoughts on that. I also have another video coming out tomorrow, my thoughts on Corey Feldman, because I just can't get enough visits from County Monet. And also for $1 a month, you can get my thoughts, after shows, and exclusivities on Patreon, which I will also link down below, where I shamelessly hawk my Teespring merch and my Twitter and my other social media and my P.O. Box. So thank you very much, everyone, and until next time, Hausfrau out.